My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska. My mission, as always, is to help you build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about if you're planning on making a move to Alaska in 2024. These are some things that you really need to know. And we'll be jumping into all of that in just a second. Give this video a like, subscribe, like it, comment, do all that good stuff. Let's get to the video. First thing I want you to be aware of is that the ferry system up here to Alaska may or may not be operating and useful for you to actually get up here. There's been some issues the past couple of years with the two vessels that we had that could actually make the route going from Washington all the way up to Alaska, where you could get off the ferry and then actually drive. There's been some issues just with updating them and getting some repairs done on those vessels. I think they've got one vessel that's repaired and ready to go, and last I heard they were trying to find a crew for it. I haven't really gotten much of an update since then. So if your plan is to take the ferry, just understand it may or may not be possible to make that move happen. So, stay glued to their website, the Alaska Marine Highway System's website, for any updates for those vessels. Number two, I would say that the Alcan is usually going to be a great option for most people. You need to keep a weather eye on the routes that you can drive, the road conditions, and any changing rules and regulations that the Canadians have as you're crossing the border. We do, the Canadians occasionally will have forest fires as you're driving through Canada, and that obviously can make you have to reroute, or they're doing some road construction. You need to go a different way. So just really keep a weather eye on what's going on the Alcan if you're considering doing that. Now, the third tip I would give you is if you are looking at making a move to Alaska, see if you can shop the area first, if at all possible. I know a lot of people, they reach out to me, they're like, oh, hey, we want to go look at houses. And it's like, okay, great. What area are you looking at? And it's like, well, we'll figure out the area. And it's like, well, hold on. We have to really save your time. We need to narrow down the area first, because we can find the perfect property. If it's in the wrong area that's not fitting the lifestyle that you're wanting to go for, it's kind of a waste of time, and it's going to give you a lot of really nasty flavored sour grapes. So for that reason, let's find the area first that you want to go to. And then once we've done that, we can be laser focused on kind of the properties that you're going to be interested in. Tip number 4, and I've said this a number of times before, but it's a good idea to say so again. If you're looking at moving to Alaska and you have an idea for what area you want to live in, then come up here, if possible, and spend some time in an Airbnb in that specific area just so you get a sense for it. Now, I said Airbnb, or short-term rental, for a very specific reason, and that is so you get a real sense as to what it's like living in that area. If you're just staying in a hotel, you're going to be getting a very touristy kind of version of what it's like living in Alaska, and you're a different animal altogether. You're trying to get a sense as to what it's like living up here, so make sure you take advantage of Airbnb and short-term rentals to give you a real feel for what it's like living up here. Tip number 5, I should say, of things you should be doing as you're looking at moving up here to Alaska, and that is take a look at the crime maps, okay? Because there's all sorts of headlines out there saying Alaska is the most dangerous state to live in, it's the most crime-ridden place, so on and so forth. Take a look at the crime map. I bet you find most of the crimes being committed are kind of concentrated in a couple of areas across the state that's bigger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. So take a look at those, take a look at the crime map, and make sure you're comfortable with the level of crime, the crimes that are being committed. Then every area is going to be a little bit different. So, some area might be more into like burglaries, some might be more into like, cars being broken into, whatever. So just make sure that whatever area you pick kind of lines up with whatever you're into. The 6th tip I would give you is make sure you have really defined what your lifestyle is going to be. If you're trying to find like a really remote, but not quite off-grid lifestyle, that is going to be completely different than if we're trying to find somewhere that is going to be a really easy commute for you to get into work, and it's going to have really easy resale potential. So really make sure you define for yourself what lifestyle it is that you're wanting to have while you're here. We're going to continue with our list in just a second, but before we do, we're going to take a really quick break here. If you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you do know that I have a relocation guide for those of you who are considering moving up here. If that's something that would benefit you, do make sure you go and register to my website down below. Just put relocation guide in the little comment section so I know what to send you. And yeah, make sure you reach out to me on there, and that's going to be the best way to get a hold of me. And also, we have a monthly meetup group for those of you who are already physically up here in Alaska or going to be in the near future. And we have that monthly Facebook group that's going to be great for you to go become a part of, so you can start getting a good idea as to the stuff that we go and do. Usually it's going hiking, going sledding. We did a photo shoot a couple months ago. So it's usually pretty basic, simple stuff, but it's just an opportunity to plug in and meet people who are here in the community. So do make sure you go join that Facebook group. Again, link for that, description section down below. Let's go and finish today's video. All right, the seventh thing that you should be aware of as you're looking at moving to Alaska is know when it's a good time to buy versus when it's a good time to rent. If you have no clue about what it's like living in Alaska, never been here before, northern climates are usually, this is all new territory for you, might be a good idea to go ahead and just rent for about the first year, just so you can get a sense for all the seasons and just make for darn sure this is where you want to be. And the thing to also keep in mind is if you know Alaska is your thing, you've been here for a while, and the finances really make sense for you, you know what area you want to be in, you know for sure how long you're going to be here, it's probably not a bad idea to actually look at buying versus renting. I know everyone right now is saying like the sky's falling, and they've been saying that forever. And the reality is that even for the most part, a bad real estate deal is usually a better deal financially than what it would be with renting. Obviously, not always. If you pick a really bad house that had a terrible foundation, that's obviously way worse than if you just went and found a rental. Rentals fill the need of you needing flexibility and kind of a part-time thing. If you know you're going to be here for, I'd say at least like 3 or 4 years, then real estate and buying something is going to be a better option. If rates drop later, great, refinance, get a lower interest rate, and just watch everyone else as they're losing their mind trying to compete for the few homes that are on the market. The eighth thing you must do as you're looking at moving up here to Alaska is to actually come and visit during the winter time. And this kind of goes back to what we were saying before about, find an Airbnb and also go shop for the area first that you want to be in, and also come up during the winter time if at all possible. That's not always realistic, but it's great if you can do it because you kind of see Alaska at its worst. I will also say though, keep in mind if you are coming from the lower 48 to Alaska during the winter time, you are getting the shock of the cold and everything else much more extremely than you would normally. Because if you're living up here, you're going to have that transition period, starting around September where it starts getting colder and colder and colder. And once we get to January, we've had about 3 or 4 months to kind of ease into this. It's never going to feel great, but having a couple months to ease into it is certainly a lot easier on your systems than just coming in from Texas or somewhere else in January and just getting shocked by the cold. So keep in mind, once you're living up here, you will have a time period where you can kind of acclimate to it, as opposed to, you show up from Texas or Florida or wherever and just get shocked. I don't even know what point we're on at this point, but the next thing I would say is make sure that you have creating a plan and how you're going to go and plug into the social scene up here. Maybe you're really into skiing, maybe you really like camping, maybe hunting or fishing is really your thing. Whatever it is, make sure you find an avenue by which you can go get plugged into the social scene up here. Like we mentioned before, we've got our monthly meetup group, so there's a built-in social network for you right there. Make sure you take advantage of it. Another big thing I would say, we kind of talked about crossing the Alcan before. I would say kind of make it almost like a part-time job for yourself for a little bit to really study the border crossing aspect of driving the Alcan specifically. And the reason for that is if you're going to have an issue as you're going through Canada, it is almost always going to be at the border and them not letting you in for some reason. So make sure you are really on top of all the rules and regulations and everything that goes into crossing over into another country, to make sure that your entrance to Alaska is going to be as smooth as possible. I've said this a million times before, and I wish I could get a dime for every time that I say it, but it's still true, and I will still say it 1,000 more times. But consolidate down all of your personal stuff. A lot of the things that we have, really unnecessary. And you really start appreciating how unnecessary a lot of this stuff is after you've had the chore of transporting all your personal belongings about 2,000 miles over some of the most rugged highways in the entire Northern Hemisphere. So make sure that you've really consolidated down as much of your stuff as you possibly can, because every pound is going to count. This next one is going to be really important for the fishermen or fisherwomen, for those of you who are out there, and that is, if at all possible, make sure you show up in the year before like the June, July timeframe. The reason for that is because if you're going to qualify for dip netting, where you go down to the Kenai, you hold up like this giant 8-foot size net where you just run it into the water and you just, scoop them out that way, then you want to make sure you get here like around like that before like June, July timeframe. The reason for that is you have to be a resident in Alaska for at least a year before you're allowed to go dip netting. You can't just show up and as a tourist run down there and go dip netting. That's actually quite illegal, and they will pop you for it. Alaskans are big snitches when it comes to turning people in over dip netting. So make sure that if you possibly can, show up earlier in the year so when dip netting season rolls around for the next one, you'll be able to jump right in. Last but not least, I know it's a lot easier said than done, and that is try to make sure you have your employment lined up before you get here. And this is an entirely different topic that we have made a lot of videos about, kind of talking about how to navigate the employment scene up here, how to position yourself best to win. And there's really no easy answers because this is a topic that's probably going to continue being challenging for people who are currently living out of state trying to find work up here. A lot of the employers have been burned in the past with people who are out of state coming in, getting the job, then they move up here and then they feel the cold of the winter or decide this just isn't for them anymore. They move and now the business is like, well, crud, we just poured all this training and time and effort into this person and they just left. We're just going to hire people only currently living in the state moving forward. And that's kind of been the experience that a lot of employers have had up here, and that unfortunately is why a lot of people from out of state kind of feel this extra challenge trying to find work before they get here. One option that's worked pretty well, obviously networking, reaching out on LinkedIn, contacting people directly, that's really good. Another thing that can work is moving up here and then finding a position at that point. Way riskier. So if you're going to do that, I'd say have at least a good idea for how you can have work lined up and be pretty sure, and then also consolidate your budget down to a point where you can make some kind of an entry-level position or some part-time jobs work as you're looking for more of that bigger career move kind of a position. Because I've been in that boat before where I had to cobble together like 2 or 3 part-time jobs to make it work because couldn't find any kind of a long-term position open for me. So believe me, I do understand your pain. So this has been my video talking about the 13 things you should be aware of and you should be doing if you are moving to Alaska in 2024. Hope it's been useful. If you're thinking about moving to Alaska or you have real estate questions, reach out to me on my website down below and I'd be more than happy to help. Thanks for watching. See you next time.